Where We're From highlights the rich textures, histories, and experiences of the Asian, Pacific Islander, and Desi American community. Each episode is produced by students at San Jose State University.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our final episode, Maui Strong, Rethinking Our Relationship with Hawaii, of our three-episode podcast series on Asian American Studies. We are the Cine Gang. My name is Georgie.
I'm Aditya.
I'm Aliana.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Juchon.
Thanks for introducing yourself, guys. Now, how do we move forward and keep pushing for change when obstacles keep appearing, such as our climate? Emerging from another obstacle, the COVID-19 pandemic, we've experienced a range of natural disasters in the U.S. alone, such as the LA wildfires, Hurricane Milton, and countless tornadoes. Today, we will discuss the 2023 Maui fires, the response, and what we can learn from this event. Adi, will you start us off with an overview of the Maui fires?
Yeah, sure, Georgie. So basically, this happened in August of 2023. There were basically like strong winds from the passing by Hurricane Dora, and the power lines fell, and they had active sparks falling out. And these sparks, uh, by live power, like live power lines, also were aided by strong winds from the hurricane. And basically the fire quickly spread to it ignited like the grass, and then it spread to the rest of the city, and it ended up in more than 2,000 structures burning down, and sadly 100 people losing their lives. And the much less highlighted part is that there was actually multiple fires in Maui, but the one in Lahaina was more significant because it burned down an entire city. So, and then Hawaiian Electric is also being investigated over their negligence to not turn off the power during the high wind situation.
So, how did these fires affect the people actually living on the island?
Great question, Aliana. So basically, a lot of people, obviously survivors, had PTSD because their cities burned down, and of course they had other anxiety related disorders, especially concerning because like a third of Hawaii's population has untreated psychological issues, and they have a shortage of therapists as well. And I state these facts due to the fact that this will put more strain on the system from the already suffering population of Hawaii. And many people are also affected by the cultural aspect, like the emotional aspect of this, which is that Lahaina was the historic capital of Hawaii. And it was seen as like a Native Hawaiian history wiped out. And due to most of Lahaina's population being working class, the financial burden also causes anxiety for most people. And it should be mentioned that Hawaiians do not really seek therapy because in Polynesian cultures, similar to Asian culture, it's seen as like weakness and like selfish to only talk about your feelings and not putting the community over other people. And because people are expected to leave aside their own pain and provide for others, like community building, rather than being selfish and thinking about themselves. And there's a greater support for, like, as I said, community building. And this puts like an extra level of stigma for seeking therapy for the people who lost stuff in the fire.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say that tourism has also put a huge strain on the locals towards their overpopulation and negative involvement in the island of Hawaii. A huge disadvantage to the housing crisis after the Maui wildfires left thousands of families homeless. Along with this, a large and constant consumption of energy and water brings the lack of resources within an island by a lot. This brings a scarce amount of resources left over for the locals. Tourism plays a big part in Hawaii and the ocean and landmarks that attract many tourists every year. However, problems with littering and dumping waste has seriously affected in the marine ecosystem that Hawaii is famously known for. Tourists should remember the place that they might visit is also a home to another, which means showing respect towards the culture and the land that they are visiting. Through the fire made life in the island worse, another problem has been plaguing the Hawaiian Islands, which is tourism. Hey, Aliana, can you tell me more about how tourism affects Hawaii even before the fires?
Yeah, of course. So, just to give a little backstory on tourism, as we know, Hawaii is one of the most well-known and must-see tourist spots, but it wasn't always like this. Before the massive spread of tourism, Hawaii was originally known for their distinct culture and cared more about their natural beauty and culture rather than capitalizing on tourism development. Widespread tourism began in the late 1800s with steamboats and then followed jet plane travel because those began to be the main ways of transportation to get to Hawaii. People began to be intrigued with Hawaii's natural landmarks and it started to become a prime vacation destination.
So how did the tourism industry begin to dominate Hawaii?
That's a good question, Jared. So there are actually a couple of factors that led to tourism domination. Some of the factors being the beautiful weather and landmarks, news and social media exposure, the government, which both local and national, they began to build many buildings like hotels to promote tourism, and a lot more other factors as well. So, although the state heavily relies on tourism to bring money to Hawaii, it also has negative economic effects on the natives. The effects that being native Hawaiians are getting pushed out of their homes because the prices of homes are getting way too expensive for any native Hawaiian to live by, which ultimately causes them to be displaced. And then natural resources like water are becoming limited and cultural prostitution. And in this context, the cultural prostitution in Hawaii is used in tourism to cash in on Hawaiian culture for economical purposes.
Right. But the issue of cultural prostitution is not new. There's this idea tourists believe that the island's locals need them because the tourist industry is the main contributor to their economy. However, this doesn't mean we should be visiting Hawaii so frequently. We want to diminish extractive tourism and move away from Hawaii's dependency on the tourist industry. I believe that visiting somewhere should require you to learn about the place and know how your actions might affect those that live there. Instead, people tend to turn a blind eye and ignore how their actions might affect others because they aren't directly harming people. They're simply on vacation. So, what's the harm in that? There's this sense of innocence described by Robert Bernstein in Kathy Park Hong's book Minor Feelings as the active state of repelling knowledge. We need to be open and seek to be educated about places, people, and history. This is the key to moving forward.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that it's like easy to ignore issues that don't directly affect us because in this case, visitors just visit Hawaii and see for what it is and then just leave. They forget about the fact that locals actually live there and they're not just some people at a vacation spot just to serve them, you know?
I agree. This is why education and mindfulness is so important. Education is liberation. It empowers individuals to improve their sense of self by valuing themselves and their communities more, including communities that they might not be a part of. With the goal of bringing help back to her people, individuals such as Keani Rollins Fernandez, a vice chair of the Maui County Council, feels that if it is her kuleana responsibility to advocate for her community the same way her elders did. According to an interview with Business Insider. In her interview, she discusses the housing crisis that we've talked about many times throughout this podcast so far, as well as tourists trespassing for photo ops around waterfalls and volcanoes, putting themselves and first responders in danger, as well as if, excuse me, putting first responders in danger if they need to perform rescue. Another point she brought up is that locals can't commute easily because tourists are getting their sunset pictures. These crowds clog up highways while locals are just trying to get to work or pick up or drop off their kids.
I feel like as tourists, we see the destination as only a vacation, a place to admire and do activities in and create fun memories. But what we don't see as tourists is that we are in someone's home. And as a result of this, we disregard the natives' everyday lifestyle for our own leisure, which honestly is very inconsiderate.
Exactly. Her message to tourists is as follows. Visit responsibly, respect local culture, and minimize one's footprint. Support local businesses over chain restaurants. Go on tours instead of taking your own or rented vehicle. Make sure you're staying at a legitimate Airbnb or Vrbo and come with respect and gratitude, not entitlement. There are some that disregarded the Maui fires, but it didn't affect their favorite tourist spots in Hawaii. But on the other hand, many joined in solidarity.
Although a lot of people were affected by these fires, many people from around the world and the United States came together to support people of Maui for the damages that were done. The first people to help were the local communities right there on Maui. Neighbors helping neighbors, people opened their home to those who lost theirs. They shared food, clothes, and support. Churches, community centers, and groups worked hard to give people what they needed. It was a great example of people taking care of each other.
I think although the Maui fires were a devastating tragedy, I really do like how the communities were being brought together in this time of disparity because it really goes to show when push comes to shove that people of their local communities will have each other's backs.
Yeah, a lot of people all over the United States heard about what happened and wanted to help too. Firefighters from other states came to help fight the fires and support the local teams. Big organizations like the Red Cross sent food, water, and medical supplies. There were fundraisers where people raised money to give back to those affected.
Oh yeah, my high school, Milpitas High, also did a fundraiser. We called it Maui Benefit, where we invited the Hawaiian pop group Crossing Rain to perform at our school, along with our school's Hawaiian/Tahitian dance club, Manava. I was a part of Manava, and when we danced barefoot to feel grounded to the earth. We held this event in an outdoor amphitheater, and the ground was scorching hot. At the end of the event, I had burn blisters on my feet, but it was all worth it because we were able to raise over 10,000 towards recovery and rebuilding for Lahaina schools.
That's cool that the Bay can come out to help. Actually, even people living far away in other countries wanted to help. They donated money online, shared stories on social media, and made sure that the world was paying attention. Native Hawaiians living in other places also worked hard to support their families and communities back home. And this ties into a bigger idea, interconnected humanity. It means understanding that we're all part of one global family. What happens to one community affects us all. Although our locations or backgrounds may differ, our acts of kindness, understanding, and ability to be there for one another display global impact.
So, in conclusion, educating oneself and producing respect towards the home that tourists visits are critical. The effects of tourism and the effects that they bring towards the island of Hawaii and the locals have brought a lot of hardships. Many locals of Hawaii take pride in the prestige landscapes and oceans. Respecting those landmarks can preserve them. Tourists should regard locals and their cultural rules. Being mindful when visiting another country produces a positive and respectful impact over time.
Exactly. We're all on the same big rock. Whether we like it or not, someone else's problem will eventually become our problem, especially when it regards human rights, the environment, and the economy. Now I have some questions for our listeners to consider. Think back. Have you ever gone somewhere as a tourist and participated in an activity that hindered the lives of locals? Second, how can we make sure that we protect native culture and artifacts in the Pacific Islands from external factors? And last, how can we be more mindful of certain areas on the islands that are more sacred? Thank you all for listening to our 3-part podcast series. The Cine Gang out.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Where We're From. This podcast is produced by students enrolled in Dr. Joanne Rondilla's Asian American Studies courses at San Jose State University.